I was nervous to do this video because I feel like the comments of the few people that like are editing people are gonna be like, she's so stupid, she has no idea what you're doing. But honestly, in my opinion, if it looks good in the end, does it matter how the sausage was made?
No. You know, this isn't that bad.
It's great.
And now I know why you do it.
It's like kind of refreshing because it's like water basically, but
Yeah.
like just like a hint of alcohol. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Lil's channel. By very popular demand, this video is going to be about editing. But I wanted to bring my friend Austin Newman here because he's an editor as well. Actually became like internet friends. Do you remember how? I think it was me being creepy. But he has a YouTube channel.
What's up guys, Austin Newman here. I get asked a lot about affordable.
Subscribe. Also, he has a bunch of presets that you can buy. I think I was downloading all of them.
I think you reached out on Twitter and you said something like you liked my presets or something like that.
You're probably like, who is this?
Oh, thanks.
I used to use Austin's presets a lot, but then I actually have moved on to a program called Red Giant. I got a year free, so I guess that makes you feel a little better. It basically has a ton of transitions, a bunch of effects.
Can't really customize it outside of their parameters, so
But they have a lot of parameters.
They do have a lot of parameters.
The reason I wanted you to come here today and be in this video and talk about editing
to talk
in general,
about Red Giant and how much better they are.
was to make it so I didn't sound so stupid, because I feel like I'm a pretty knowledgeable editor, but in a very, very self-taught manner, in that I don't know a lot of the technical or like maybe right ways to do things. I wanted someone with like maybe a little more technical expertise than fill in the blanks for when I'm just like trying to like explain things but can't. But anyway, he's visiting from Florida. He's been on like a cross-country road trip. I mean, like half of it wasn't a time. Would you call a train a road trip? It's still on the road.
The no plane train.
Railroad. What?
It's the no plane train.
Yeah. Tell us your background really fast. Elevator pitch.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I need everyone to know your biggest accomplishment.
So I've been doing filmmaking since I was very young, VHS cameras, things like that, where I kind of get the inspiration for the stuff I do now. I've made a couple of feature films, moved on to YouTube, doing a bunch of like different travel videos. We set a route from Central Florida to Denver, Colorado, which overall took about 3 days. We had several setbacks on the way, from a deformed tire in Alabama to a loose battery in Mississippi. Tutorials. Under opacity, we're gonna change this blending mode from normal to screen. A bit of everything. And just like experimenting with editing.
We both use Adobe Premiere. We both come with tips. They could be like very general tips, or they could be very like specific. I feel like I can't talk.
Pacific Coast Highway.
Some of it's specific to Premiere Pro, but not all of it, for me at least.
Mine are like shortcuts and stuff.
So all Premiere Pro for him.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you 2 keys that are like the most important when cutting out long clips like right here, what you're gonna have. Pop it up on the screen. Q and W. They're the best hotkeys that you can use. If you haven't already messed with your
Show me what they do.
So if I'm like right here and I wanna chop out everything before this on this clip.
On just that clip.
On just that clip. So like if I wanna chop out that shit, Q. Q ripple deletes everything from the left side of the cursor, and W
to the previous clip.
Right, to the previous clip. Same thing for everything here on the tail end. So like right here, if all this is good footage, and then you go right here, and you want to get rid of all of this stuff,
super helpful, and I feel like I should get used to doing that. I do A, which selects everything the right of what you're doing. I'll see when there's audio breaks, and I'll like click there where the audio starts again, and then I just like do it really fast.
There's like 5 extra clicks that you're doing even just doing that. Like,
I
I'm
know.
really surprised.
I know.
Try Command K sometime.
What does Command K do?
It adds a cut. Rather than hitting C and using your cutting tool, like it just adds a cut.
This is actually just like a pet peeve of mine. When people are doing jump cuts and there's those audio pops in between clips. I don't even know how to create it because I feel like it happens so
Do it right here.
But have any other suggestions?
Now it's not doing it.
Feels like it's very random. Sometimes though, like there'll be times that it's like you're not even cutting like in the middle of a sentence and suddenly there's like a weird like cracking noise or a popping noise. Very, very easy fix is Command Shift D, default audio transition, and then I just make it like the smallest possible. And then I go through to all my transitions just as I edit.
If you want to do like a simple graphic or just like add some quick text and just have it animate into the screen, like this. There's a way to make it like kind of look a little bit cleaner, because this looks very like Windows Movie Maker. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm curious where you're going.
Okay, instead of like actually going into my motion, what I would rather do is go over here to my effects and find transform.
What?
Oh, you have fucking plugins.
Moral of the story here is work smarter, not harder. The one that at work that we always used, and that's why I have it, it's the impact transition. It's like an impact slide. So that'll just like slide it onto the screen. So I would just use that.
Instead, yeah, if I just animated this with the transform, I go down here to use composition shutter angle. And if I do my shutter angle to 180, like 180 degrees, it gives you a motion blur. So now when it slides in, it looks a little bit better. Of course, that's like slow. So like if I...
Oh my God, wait, we should have done this sooner because I'm learning stuff too now.
Just kind of adds a really nice flair to it, I think. Just like your sound, like if you want to polish up something.
I'm not gonna get too in depth about it, but I feel like people comment on a lot, and it's one of the biggest things for me, like how I edit and like kind of like how I even start. A lot of people think music is like, oh, I need to put background music in it. For me, I'm like very intentional about picking the music in that like sometimes I like really don't even want to start editing. Then I'll spend like hours looking through a bunch of tracks and then finding some music that I really like and that inspires me. Usually I'll spend at least 3 hours finding probably like 15 to 20 songs. And I don't know which ones I'm gonna use, but I just kind of download all of them. And then I put them all on the project and then I start listening to them again because it's been 3 hours. I can like decide what my favorite is and then I go from there. I get it from Epidemic Sound. It's like a subscription service. I think I paid up front 200 something and I have it for a year and they literally have like anything you could possibly need.
They've got a nice variety of music.
It doesn't feel like royalty free, like cheap. Like,
yeah, it's so important too,
yeah.
it's,
well,
like,
that's I think
over.
a lot of people are like, oh, like last thing, throw in a song. And I'm like, no, that's the first thing I do.
Something that I like to do to kind of like, and I've actually seen a lot of people do this. I know you do it because I've seen you use it. You actually have a shot like this where the camera is static. I'm gonna add some motion to it to kind of like make it a little bit more dynamic. You would just kind of punch in and zoom in to people. And this is something that's pretty simple. If I wanted to like kind of add a little bit more dynamic movement to this, then I would just kind of keyframe scale and position and then go a little bit, zoom in, maybe 20%. When we go back, we actually have a nice little animation. Even though I know I left some black bar.
I do that sometimes on accident because I just wasn't paying attention. I get so upset when I see it afterwards. Because despite watching them so many times, I still upload and then I see 5 mistakes and I'm like, how the fuck did I not see that before? I think keyframes, and especially with YouTube these days, I feel like that's like, I don't have 3 cameras, so to give some variety to the content, doing zoom ins and stuff, which you can just do like jump cuts to a zoomed in version, which I honestly do both because I feel like they have different kind of effects.
Yeah. I mean, like you can watch all kinds of videos you see. It's a good way to hide jump cuts, like you were saying as well. All in all, it's a great like skill to have in your tool set.
Stabilizing your footage. So many people have the gimbals and like the stabilizers now. You can have them for your phone. You can have the Ronin that's like the $800-ish one for DSLRs. And they're really great, especially if you're like following people or like moving a bunch and like you don't want to have to worry about it. I usually would be like filming B-roll for like montages for if we were like at a location. Getting signed, getting a crowd. I have very shaky hands, I will say right now.
Let's see. That's not that too bad.
They're pretty.
It's like micro movements.
But it like
translates.
Yeah. I think I first learned about the warp stabilizer tool and then like used it just with its like preset settings. And I just dragged it onto something and it didn't really work and it made it all like,
it's like gelatin.
Like looks kind of like spacey and like weird. I don't know what made me Google it one day. I think it was that I watched someone's video and I was like, oh my God, what did they film that on? I just stabilized everything. So I was like, what do you mean? Adobe has their preset at 50 and I always just would even leave that.
I think that if you wanted smoother motion, it'd be a higher percentage.
It's like a logical, I was like just mad at it and ignoring it for so long and then I finally figured out how it worked. And there's also a bunch of other settings, smooth motion or no motion, you can choose the methods. If I'm standing filming a building and not moving at all, but my hands are kind of shaking, and then I do no motion, that'll be the easiest thing ever. If you're moving, it's a little more complicated, but you can be shaky. I think the key is just no jerky movements. Long story short, start with 5, see if that like gets the effect you need, and then slowly move up from there. I never really go higher than 15%. Never if I'm like vlogging and like walking, only putting it on stuff that I shot with the intention of stabilizing it afterwards. That is one of the biggest differences in like montages that you can make. There are so many things out there there available that are already made for you to use.
Plugins or
Presets, plugins,
presets.
anything. So, or like overlays, or like when I was making the clever 10-year documentary, TV stock images with like green screened out of the screen so you could put your own footage in it. Could go find an 80s TV and film it myself. I don't have time for that. I'll find a stock footage one. And then I'll have like the occasional plugin or preset that I'll use. And then I'll try and be like very consistent about when I use it throughout. My Puerto Rico vlogs, I did a lot of like, it was like, I did like a tape eject kind of thing. I was using like an audio clip that I found on YouTube of a tape ejecting, a VHS transition from Red Giant,
There's
and
other
then
transitions to use.
he has a lot of retro ones available. They'll all be linked below. On top of that, I was manually going in and changing the motion, so I was having it zoom out so
Right.
it looked like it was like ejecting.
Oh,
And then
that's for your last.
yeah. And so much time doing something that like probably no one will ever notice.
Yeah, but it
like,
shows in your videos. I mean, you know, that was a cool sequence. But it was all those little things that you put in that like really made the difference.
Also, don't ever decide those until like randomly maybe halfway through, and then I like have to like go re-implement it throughout.
Oh, really?
I have no plan when I'm editing.
Just kind of see it and then just go for it.
I'll start with a song, and then I'll start, and then I'm like, oh, well that kind of like in the song sounded a little bit like a tape scratch.
Right.
So then I'll like get inspired by that to do like a transition,
Oh,
and then
that's
I'm
cool.
like, and then I'll just kind of let it go.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to experiment, for sure. I mean, that's the only way you really get the kind of cuts that you end up with. You can't just copy. Like, you know,
No.
you see people on YouTube, and you kind of see, and there's some tools that you use that are like just kind of standard, and there's the ones like you're talking about that are just, you know, it's important to try and experiment so you can get like really cool things. You find your voice in editing.
I have always struggled working with editors a lot of the time because I don't necessarily know what I want because I figure it out while I'm editing. I feel like I have to see it to be able to like really know what I want.
Right, yeah.
That's how the sausage is made. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Go follow Austin on all the social medias. What is your handle?
YouTube.com/Austin Newman, Instagram @AustinMakesFilms, and Twitter @ANewmanFilms.
They're all different.
All different.
But
I
they're
know, I
all
tried to
linked
get the
below,
one.
so you can go click them too. And I think I'll put his subscribe. The subscribe thing is on screen now. Also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. There's not usually editing videos, and if this was a little too much for you, it was a little much for me too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Again.